community is more than buildings, and it's more than a group of people. A community represents our shared goals, ideals, and culture. It's how we live together. In our communities, we all build something and hope that what we create will be a lasting statement to what we believe and value. This is the legacy of Bob and Jane Holdeman, who built a foundation for the arts in our community, who brought more beauty into our lives and inspired others to do the same.
Bob is creative, a true artist, a true thinker, and just has done so much for this community.
He's someone who is deeply embedded in the arts and in architecture and is very passionate about it.
He's a definite interest in all of the arts, including music.
He is a community treasure. You can see his marks throughout the city.
He's committed. He's committed to his profession, to the visual arts as an artist himself, and to recognizing the importance of the arts in our community and in society.
He's very quiet, but he does things.
Jane is unstoppable, unflappable, talented, kind, and just a great friend.
Jane Holdeman is a very sincere, charismatic individual who is somebody that you think you've known all your life.
Jane showed herself to be a woman who loves literature, who reads a lot, writes a lot, has very, very high standards of what literature should mean and should be.
She's a lifelong learner. She dedicates herself to finding out about all kinds of things that will broaden her horizon and broaden the horizon of those that she interacts with.
Bob's work is really about how do they make a genteel space for human beings to be, that human beings can understand each other and the arts and feel true community.
He's going to have a tremendous legacy here at Crystal Mountain. He's done probably 20 different projects with us over the years.
I think as an architect, you're working with an artist. You're working with a person that creates fine art in 3 dimensions.
Everything that he does has this kind of musical sort of feeling.
He considers the environment that he's doing the work in and makes sure that the structure that he designs takes advantage of the natural beauty.
The structures that he creates, they really fit into the landscape and they enhance the quality of that landscape. They don't detract from the landscape.
Among Bob's many projects in Northwest Michigan, the Denos Museum was a catalyst for the arts in Traverse City. In building the region's first museum, Bob was more than an architect. He served as an advocate for the community, for artists, and for generations who would have more access to the arts.
When I sat down with Bob, we talked about creating a space to show art. Bob, being a watercolorist and an artist himself, understood that completely. So often what you see happening today in museum architecture is architecture that is the vanity of the architect, but when you get inside of it, it doesn't function as it should to be an art museum. When you walk into the Denos, you get this wow factor walking in, but you get the wow factor because the art sings in the building. building works time and time again. And it worked the way it did because of Bob's genius.
Bob's contributions to architecture and the arts have not been confined to Northwest Michigan. His efforts have also reshaped communities in northern Indiana, where he was born and raised.
When I first called Bob about the fact that we had found a 1918 round barn, 60 feet high and 60 feet in diameter, and that we wanted to convert it to a 400-seat live theater, he was very excited. He came and looked at it. We walked around in the pigeon manure and the straw, and were thrilled with what we saw. Today, our Round Barn Theater is unique in the country, and his ability to integrate the old with the new and the up-to-date in a very modern space is, I think, unparalleled.
You know, architecture is maybe our most public art. And when somebody builds a structure, we're stuck with it for a long, long time. And with Bob's buildings, they're always pleasing, they're welcoming. I don't think anybody has ever been in a hurry to take down one of Bob's creations.
After moving to Traverse City, Bob and Jane were involved in establishing the Arts Council, an organization dedicated to developing the cultural infrastructure of the region.
You can look at Bob and Jane as architects of the cultural community. They've been part of that physical architecture as well as the cultural architecture.
When I first came to Traverse City in 1957, the biggest thing going was the State Fair and numbers paintings.
I think the cultural scene in this town has really blossomed and taken off, and Bob and many of the different artists in this town had so much to do with that.
Culturally, a lot of people think it just happened, like a chicken breaking an egg, and oh, here it is, here's culture. Well, it wasn't that way. It took determination, heart, it took guts, it took certain people.
By 1969, we had a small cadre of people that were interested in the arts and tried to do some formal art planning in Traverse City. And Bob's ideas from his architectural and arts background were invaluable to that early creation of the Arts Council.
When the Arts Council started, and we started traveling to Detroit to see artwork, we were thinking then, Traverse City really needs a museum. People had talked about a museum, but nothing ever really gelled. He did a drawing of the building. At that moment it gelled, and it went in the Record Eagle, and the Record Eagle covered it. People would look at it and say, hey, look at a drawing. Look at, we can have a museum in Traverse City.
I can't say enough in terms of how important Bob's work in terms of creating the demos was.
You know, in economic development now, they're talking about placemaking, and we've been doing placemaking for 30 years. In fact, Bob has been a very big part of that. The economic development of this community has been that we offer opportunities for artistic and civic expression. I moved here because of the Arts Council and the Old Town Playhouse and the cultural amenities of this community. Bob Holdeman's been there arm in arm every step of the way.
Years before the completion of the Dennis Museum, Jane Holdeman was connecting the region's youngest residents with arts and culture through the Art Truck.
And Jane was instrumental in providing arts to local districts through a medium called the Art Truck.
I remember so clearly her talking about shuffling all these students from northern Michigan in and out of that truck.
Jane was the person who provided the energy and the excitement and had the knowledge to impart the various aspects of art within that art truck.
It brought a lot of contact, I think, with kids in the area who might not be able to get to Detroit or Grand Rapids to a museum to see works of art. They saw them on the art truck. And I think that was a really important step in the development of art in Traverse City.
Today, Jane contributes to the cultural landscape through her work with T.C. Reads. The group uses literature to build community through conversation and shared ideas. When the founder of Michigan Legacy Art Park set out to create a space for artists to exhibit work in an outdoor environment, it was a chance meeting with Bob Holdeman that ultimately grew into a partnership that would make the park a reality.
This park would not be here if it wasn't for Bob Holdeman. Meeting Bob was just sort of happenstance. We were exploring Traverse City and meeting with various groups and organizations in order to explore locations for the art park. We pulled up to look at the Denos Museum, and it was just the iron was just in place. It was an open skeletal structure, and Bob happened to be there with a roll of drawings under his arm. We chatted for a bit, and I told him about the ideas for an art park, and he just responded instantly.
Bob played a key role in seeking out a location for Michigan Legacy Art Park. After several false starts, his search took him to Crystal Mountain, where he had led design efforts for years.
In our master plan, we had identified places where we might have some site sculpture tucked here and there throughout the property. So we said, Bob, if our park were interested in making its home at Crystal Mountain, would that be a possibility? You know that we have beautiful land, and there was actually 30 acres in our master plan, which Bob had been a part of, which we wanted to hold as a preserve. We had decided that it was far too beautiful to develop, that it should be held in its natural state for generations to come. And within about 2 weeks, he came with David Barr and Beth Barr, and I think Terry Tarnow and Bob and Jane, and they walked the land. Artists, people like David Barr, people like Bob Holdeman, they could see the potential to put Art Park on that site. And it was as a result of his connection with the arts community that he was able to kind of put the dots together. And it was also because he was so involved with our master plan.
As the art park was established at Crystal Mountain, Bob went to work designing the amphitheater and the distinctive trailhead gateway to the 30-acre wooded preserve, where the arts celebrate Michigan history, culture, and the environment.
His commitment to Legacy Art Park, he's helped transform a landscape.
It's enhanced the beauty of the landscape.
I don't know of any other couple in the region who have done as much for the arts publicly and privately across the entire artistic spectrum as Bob and Jane. And I think we're going to be forever indebted to both of them for what they've given the Grand Traverse area and northwestern Michigan.
Bob and Jane, to me, represent graciousness, civilization, cultivation, community, education. Their life is about that, and it's reflected in their work.
As I see this region blossom and grow, I see two people who, in their own subtle and humble way, who have touched the souls relative to art, maybe as much or more than anybody I know.
Through their efforts, they have left the community with facilities and with programs that will continue to enrich this community with new cultural experiences for years and decades to come.